Howdy, friend. Sam Houston here, hoping you're living in high cotton. And if you're lucky enough to be in Texas, I know you're most of the way there. Now enjoy your daily dose of Texas history and Texas pride.
Well, howdy, friend. Welcome to today's Texas History Roundup for July 20th. So in 1857, the 2nd U.S. Cavalry fought its most significant engagement in Texas at Devil's River. It had been organized specifically for the Texas frontier. On this date, Lieutenant John Bell Hood had a detachment of 25 men fought a combined force of about 50 Comanche and Lipan Apache warriors. It was estimated that 9 Indians were killed and at least double that number injured. The cavalrymen had 7 casualties, one being Hood, who was wounded when an arrow pinned his hand to his saddle. Oh, wow. Of course, you recognize that name, John Bell Hood, later on, 3-4 years later, in the War for Southern Independence. 1886, James Truitt was murdered in his home in Timpson. Nelson Cooney Mitchell had been hanged in 1875 at Granbury for the killing of 2 Truitts in 1874 during a land dispute in Hood County. Subsequently, Nelson's son Bill held a grudge against James Truitt, a young minister who testified against his father. 11 years to the day later, Mitchell was accused of killing Truitt. He was captured in New Mexico in 1905 and convicted in 1910. He was sent to the penitentiary but escaped after serving about 2 years and was not recaptured. Wow, lucky man. 1920, John A. Jack Johnson landed in the United States and was arrested for violation of the Mann Act, which forbade the interstate transportation of white women for the purpose of prostitution. He returned to boxing after his release but was unsuccessful. Johnson died in an automobile crash in North Carolina on June 10th, 1946. 1923. Mexican revolutionary Francisco Pancho Villa was ambushed and killed in Chihuahua. Villa was born in Durango, Mexico in 1877. In 1910, he joined the revolution against Porfirio Diaz, his government, and in 1913, recruited men in El Paso to fight against Victoriano Huerta. Later, when he turned against the American government, El Paso feared attacks by him, such as the Glen Springs raid of 1916. Mexican Federalists eventually bought Villa's retirement by giving him an estate in Chihuahua in 1920, where he lived until being killed 3 years later. And just an interesting side note, if it wasn't for Pancho Villa, I would not be doing this podcast right now, probably, because he expelled my great-grandfather, who was a Catholic priest from Mexico. And he expelled them, or exiled them, truly. He ended up in Houston, and the Houston diocese would not accept him as a priest, so he had to just work in the church and teach choir. And while he was doing that, he met my great-grandmother. And then they had my grandmother, who was my mom's mom. And that's how I ended up being here. So interestingly enough. All right, in 1931... on this day and the next, mass meetings in Sherman and Denison demanded the opening of the newly constructed Red River Free Bridge, and resolutions to this effect were forwarded to Governor Ross S. Sterling. These led to the opening of the bridge on July 25th, after 23 days of legal wrangling between the governors of Texas and Oklahoma. That would be interesting to look more into. Why was there such a big kerfuffle between them? And then in 1969, Apollo 11 astronaut Neil A. Armstrong transmitted the first words from the surface of the moon. Houston, the Eagle has landed. And that is your Texas History Roundup for July 20th.
Well, there you have it. If you like our podcast, check us out at feedbandit.com. There you'll find awesome Texas First outdoors gear and apparel. Your purchase helps support the Bandits and keeps this podcast on the air, fighting for you and for Texas. Remember, preserve the tradition, protect the legacy. Until next time.